Bro, I love watching you grow up.
He's pulling down his pants. Put up your pants, my man.
Touchdown!
Is this the time?
Fernando Tatis Jr., a grand slam!
Iguodala. It's funny to hear a female talk about routes. Like,
Pull up your pants. Take off the bra and be a man.
Welcome to From the Backseat, hosted by Clark and Ethan.
it's funny.
Hello and welcome to From the Backseat. I'm your host, Ethan, and I'm joined today by my co-host.
What up, guys? Clark here. Great to be back. Another Monday night game that was an absolute catastrophe, disaster. Cardinals crap in the bed. A lot going on in Week 11. Really stoked to get into it.
Yeah, so let's talk about some general thoughts from Week 11. How did you think the opening week went?
I think it was not an eye-opening week. I really didn't see anything that was like a huge concern for some of the contenders, save teams like the Eagles. I think for the second straight week in a row, the Eagles looked pretty suspect. I mean, I know Indianapolis isn't the easiest place to go into and play, but I really thought they would blow the doors off of that team. And they, again, kind of just struggled through things. But otherwise, around the league, I guess another general takeaway is that Joe Flacco should probably be starting over Zach Wilson right now in New York. That is one of the most pathetic showings I've seen in recent memory over a half of football is Zach Wilson. I believe the Jets offense, if I looked it up correctly, averaged 2.77 inches per play in the second half of the game last week against New England. Completely inexcusable. I'm someone who bought into the Zach Wilson life for the Jets, but right now it appears absolutely tragic. So, I mean, I guess those are two probably off the top of my head that I would really say kind of stick out. So, I don't know. Well, I mean, it was a weird week in some ways, but at the same time, it was kind of business as usual for others.
So what I thought we'd start with, and that was a great transition, because this week I felt like we had a lot of sink or swim.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought we'd talk about the state of the AFC playoff race right now.
Yeah.
So when we go into the AFC playoff race, it kind of feels like who's going to win their divisions are already decided. Maybe aside from the AFC North.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the only toss-up one. And in the AFC East, there could be a couple teams who win there.
But I think you kind of know.
I think the West is done.
The West is done.
That's the Chiefs. And I think the South is the Titans. I don't think anyone's contending there.
No.
So let's talk through the AFC North. Let's start there. So what do you have any takeaways? Ravens struggled a little bit versus the Panthers. Bengals didn't blow the door off Pittsburgh. I mean, I would argue they did. They really won by 14.
Yeah, it was just a last minute kind of touchdown.
So let's talk about it. Where do you think that division ends up? I
mean, look, I think if you're looking at a schedule standpoint, this is certainly a down the stretch that favors Baltimore by a considerable amount. I believe Cincinnati is the hardest remaining schedule the rest of the way. They face teams that are considered NFC title contenders, AFC title contenders. It does not get easy. I would say at this point, you would probably, because of that, give the edge to Baltimore. Again, as a Bengals fan, that hurts me to say, and I still think the Bengals are going to make the playoffs, but Baltimore has a cakewalk. I mean, I know they struggled against Carolina, but those games happen. I still think in the playoffs, I'd be a little more concerned about Baltimore because I think the weapons really lack, and Lamar can only do so much. And I think when they play these higher quality opponents, it's going to be a struggle. But for the AFC North right now, because of how easy of a schedule the Ravens have compared to the Bengals, which is literally the hardest in football the rest of the way out, I got to feel like it goes to the AFC North, goes to the Ravens this one. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great observation. And that's actually where I was going with this. So I thought we'd go through the Bengals' remaining schedule because it's incredibly tough.
It's insane.
I thought we'd talk through it game by game and just give predictions just because I think it's kind of the microcosm of the rest of the season, honestly.
Yeah, if the Bengals, and again, I believe the Bengals have about a 60% chance. They think it's either 59 or 60% chance to make the playoffs right now. If they do make it, there should be no questions of whether or not they earned it. Because I think about every single team they play the rest of the way is a playoff team.
All right, so next week they play the Tennessee Titans. Who are you taking there? They're on the road.
This is the game I think of because I haven't lived a couple other ones. I think they're going to beat Tennessee. I think the strength of the Bengals defense is their rush defense right now. Jermaine Pratt's playing really well. Logan Wilson's playing really well. DJ Reader will be back another week fully healthy. I think they match up well against Tennessee. I think, too, when you look at that game, I don't think Joe Burrow is going to get sacked 12 times like he did in the playoffs last year. I would give them the edge against Tennessee. I think it's going to be a slugfest, but I think it's a game Cincinnati probably wins by the score of 24-17 would be my guess. I think Burrow just outrails Tannehill in the end.
Yeah. All right. So next week after that, they got Kansas City coming to Cincinnati. Who do you have there?
There's a real temptation for me to say Cincinnati, but the reality of the situation is that Kansas City's playing out of its mind. I know the Bengals, I believe, are 3-0 with Burrow against Kansas City. Lou Anarumo clearly knows what he's doing against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But I think just the way Kansas City is playing, the Bengals are still a little bit nicked up. If Jamar Chase was fully healthy, I think I'd have a little bit more of a reason to pick Cincinnati, but I think he's going to be coming off an injury still with the fractured hip. I don't think he's 100%. I would say Kansas City wins that one.
All right, so here's our trap game, which isn't really a trap game. Deshaun Watson led Cleveland coming to Cincinnati.
I think Zach Taylor finally gets one against Kevin Stefanski. I mean, This is like the bugaboo. I know Deshaun Watson will be back, but this is a game that's at home. It's not a primetime game. It's not on Halloween or something. I think this is a game that the Bengals avoid the trap game. I know Deshaun's back. I think they handle it well enough. I really hope they just destroy Deshaun. I really hope for that. So I'll say they beat Cleveland on that one. So that would put them at 8-5.
Yeah, so right now, just down the stretch, you have them at 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1 down the stretch.
So next, we have them traveling to Tampa Bay.
I think they beat Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay is a team that they beat. I think it's going to be really close because I still think, like, again, I have harped on it now. I think Tampa Bay is somehow going to shock everyone, and they're going to end up in the NFC Championship game, and I won't be surprised if they go ahead and beat a team like San Francisco because Jimmy Garoppolo won't be able to hold water to Tom Brady. But I think in this game, I think Cincinnati beats Tampa Bay. Cincinnati's a better roster. They have better skill position players right now, and Burrow is playing better than Brady. So I would say Tampa Bay would lose to Cincinnati in that one. I'd have them at 3-1 at that point.
Next up, Christmas Eve. We have them traveling to New England to play Bill Belichick and the Patriots.
They'll beat the Patriots. I think this might be one of the last games they win down the stretch, but I think that they beat New England. I know it's going to be really tough. Christmas Eve, Foxborough, cold. Bengals have run the ball better. I still think when I watch the Patriots, Mac Jones is always just a second away from complete implosion. I think they pick up a win there. I think it really, it doesn't cement them into the playoffs, but certainly I think at that point makes you feel really good about it. But yeah, I would say they would beat Mac Jones and the Patriots. I know it's Belichick. I know people will say Belichick's an out-coach Zach Taylor, but I still think I have more faith in the roster and talent finding water for the Bengals against the Patriots.
And then they have the Buffalo Bills come into town into Cincinnati.
They'll lose to Buffalo. I think here's the thing. They're going to lose to Buffalo, but I think I'll maintain the same idea that I had with Kansas City. I think it's going to be close because I think Cincinnati matches up well against Buffalo and Kansas City, but they're going to lose both of those games at this point in my mind. I think you have a more compelling argument if the Bengals are at more strength if they had Chidozie fully healthy. They don't. I don't have a lot of faith. I love Ken Taylor-Britt, but if you're going to line him up against Gabe Davis and Eli Apple against, Stephon Diggs, you're going to need help. I think they lose that game. I think it's close, but they're going to end up losing it.
And then their final game, they play Baltimore.
So at the stretch right now, I have them at 4-2?
You have them 4-2.
So that would put their record at 10-6. Yeah, 10-6. I will again, maybe be overambitious with this. The Bengals play Baltimore always better in Cincinnati, I feel like. I think this is a game that it's going to be very close. Last game of the season. I think there's going to be a ton on the line, but I think being at home for this game pushes Cincinnati over the edge. I think this might be the one that wins them the AFC North. I think it's going to be incredibly close. Lamar plays the Bengals great all the time, but I would say in this sense, holding the way that the Bengals are playing right now, I would say that they would go ahead and beat Baltimore probably by a score of like 27-24. That's the way that I'd see it. But I think when I've watched the Ravens, I'm really just nervous about what the skill position set is because Lamar does so much. I'm just wondering by that time in late January with the way the season is, mid-January, is he going to still be doing it? I'm just a little worried about that. So I would say Cincinnati wins that game. I think that's what wins them the North. Again, that's optimistic. I still think the Ravens make the playoffs, but I think I would say 5-2, 4-3 is the stretch run I kind of expect for Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think they go 4-3 down the stretch. I think they drop one of the games that you gave them, and I think they pick up one. I think they're going to go 4-3 down that stretch. That's incredibly tough to go week after week after week.
Yeah.
Blow after blow after blow. I mean, they're going to drop a game you probably think they shouldn't drop, and they're probably going to win a game you probably think they shouldn't win.
Yeah, like I could see
So
them
I've
like
been
for
going
example,
4-3.
I could see them like losing to Tampa Bay but then beating Buffalo. Like I could see that.
Yeah.
Or like dropping one to Tampa Bay and beating Kansas City. Like I could see both of those theoretically happening. I think 4-3, 5-2. And I think for them that probably gets you into the playoffs. I think it gets you very close at least.
No, 10-7, I think gets you into the playoffs. I think you're in. It's 9-8, which is the issue.
Yeah.
So we went through. We think both Cincinnati and Baltimore are playoff teams.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. So let's talk about the state of the AFC East.
Yeah.
Do we think how many of these teams are going to go to the playoffs? I mean, we now have the Jets and Patriots tied up at the bottom at 6-4. We have the Bills at the front. Or no, the Bills aren't at the front anymore. Miami's at the front. So who do we think ends up winning this division? Who comes out in a wild card?
I'm going to say, for me, I think Buffalo. I still look, I get it. Tua and Miami, they are putting up points like crazy. But the problem is with Miami that I still have is Tua is playing really well right now. Give him the flowers he deserves. The Dolphins' defense is really bad. They give up points to anyone. Like, they let anyone go over them. I think Buffalo's defense is much better. I think offensively they match up the same. I trust Buffalo more. They've been there. I would say they go ahead and win the AFC East. I think Miami would then have a really good shot at the wild card. But for me, Buffalo wins the East. I think it's just going to end up being their division because I think Miami has a tough schedule down the stretch too themselves.
Yeah, no, they do. I think Buffalo's going to end up pulling it out too.
Yeah,
I think they will. I think Miami's a playoff team, and I actually think one of the Jets or Patriots are also going to make the playoffs.
See, I don't think
both will.
I don't think either of them are going to.
Really? So then you think the Chargers are the final spot?
I think the Chargers are more likely than those other two. Because here's the thing, look, you have ripped on the Chargers coaching. I have too. I think it's their weakness. However, I think when this team is at full health, and that's a big if right now because they're hurt every week, it seems like. But I think that the Chargers squeak in, may get that last playoff spot. I trust Herbert more than I do Mac Jones or Zach Wilson or Joe Flacco to get it done for those two teams. I mean, you see what they are. If those two teams fall behind 10-plus points, they're done. They can't come back. The Chargers, they can. I have more faith in the Chargers right now to squeak into the last playoff spot than I would say the Jets or the Patriots.
No, I get that thinking. I'm not as optimistic, but their schedule to end the year is
don't worry,
I'll
be optimistic for you.
Yeah, their schedule to end the year is very easy, and they should get into the playoffs. I mean, honestly, they should go over their last stretch 5-2, but they're not going to. But we'll see. I mean, again, not winning on Sunday night or the San Francisco game, it just made the margins so much thinner. Yeah.
I just think that's the thing. It's so tough because I think, I said this, I don't know if I said this to you guys last night, but for the Bengals, I feel like the Bengals and Chargers franchises parallel each other so similarly. I feel like the Bengals are starting to get over this hump of losing, figuring out ways to lose this game. They're now figuring out ways to win the game. The Chargers, I feel like, are still in this weird conundrum where they're like, man, we're still finding ways to lose rather than finding ways to win. Because really, they should have won both of those games back-to-back weeks.
For sure.
They're just a couple plays away, and they it's just frustrating.
Yeah, I totally agree. So this is a segment Clark doesn't know, but I thought this is what we do because we're talking about playoff picture, and we can talk about the NFC after, I think. I think what we should do is we should do the same kind of draft thing we did last week, but I think we should draft Super Bowl contenders. So we'll each take 5 teams who we think could win the Super Bowl. And so, Clark, you can have the first pick again, and you can pick your number 1 seed, and we'll just go back and forth, and we'll draft our Super Bowl contenders.
Okay. So I'll go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
All right. So with my first pick in the Super Bowl selection draft, I'll go ahead and I'll take Kansas City. How can you not go with Kansas City right now? I feel like the defense is always a question mark with them. They play well enough and make enough plays to make it happen. The real thing is, though, with Kansas City is Patrick Mahomes is the MVP of the league at this point. It's not much of a question. They are a juggernaut. They've somehow gotten better despite not having one of the best receivers in the NFL. Smith-Schuster, MVS, Kadarius Toney looks like a real threat. That guy's as slippery as it gets. You cannot tackle him in the open field. And Travis Kelce continues to be unreal. Kansas City, in my mind, they beat everyone no matter what. It doesn't matter where they are. If you're in Buffalo, if you're in Tampa, they do it to everyone. They find ways to win every week. they would got to be my number one for my Super Bowl contender pick.
Yeah, that's where I would have went the same way. Such a strong team. They have the best head coach quarterback combo in the league right now. Andy Reid is probably the best coach in the league. Patrick Mahomes is easily the best quarterback in the league. I'm sorry for all those Josh Allen lovers. It's not a
close.
Conversation.
It's still not.
It's not
close.
a conversation.
It's like, that's the thing. I mean, I will give like credence to what some Chiefs fans say. It's very annoying is that if you think your quarterback is better than Patrick Mahomes, he's not.
No,
there's guys who are close. You can say, oh, they have. If you watch Patrick Mahomes every week, he's a magician. He has the most electric arm I've seen in football my entire life. It seems like anytime you give him a little bit more extended time than you should, he finds someone. It's crazy.
Yeah, totally agree. So then with my first pick, I'm going to go on the other flip. We just talked about Josh Allen, so I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
I think this is going to be our AFC championship game again. I think it's going to be I guess it wasn't last year.
It wasn't last year, sir. I remember someone else representing the AFC Super Bowl.
You're right, but it was the big game. You're right. Cincinnati ended up going to the Super Bowl, but I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. I think if we're talking about teams, I mean, the Bills have a lot of question marks, I feel like, out over the last couple of weeks. But if I'm still taking a team going into the playoffs, I'm still going to take the Bills. Yeah. They have a good defense who's been exposed a little bit, but they can always buckle down and play better. And they have Josh Allen, who's the second best quarterback in the league. Mm-hmm. The tendonitis is a little bit of a question mark, and I'm a little worried about it because the arm angle's all off. But, I mean, again, they probably should have beat Minnesota. They didn't do it. But they're on bye this week. We'll see how they come back. I'm still taking Buffalo with my number one pick.
All right. I like it. I mean, I think you can't really go wrong there with those two teams. I mean, again, we have a very high perception of the AFC. I think we definitely think it's a better conference. But yeah, so for my number 2 one, though, I'm going to go ahead and take the team that I think is going to represent the NFC. Okay. You have to go with San Francisco. I think the way San Francisco looked otherworldly tonight. I think you saw what San Francisco looks like when Shanahan is just in his bag, when he's just calling everything perfectly. This is a team now with CMC, Debo. They're finally using Brandon Ayuk, which I've begged for. They have a legit number 1 and 2 guy. Kittle gets involved. When San Francisco plays like this, combined with the defensive side of the ball with Fred Warner and the talent they have all around the front 7, this is the most complete roster in football by far. The only thing that ever raises a question with me were the 49ers. And for anyone who's ever known me, or the Bay Area friends who may listen, Jimmy Garoppolo is the only thing that worries me. But I think for San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan is smart enough with more than enough toys to play with that he can mask around what is with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think he might be one of those coaches that figures out how to win a Super Bowl with a quarterback who is not really capable of doing that on his own. So I would say San Francisco is my number 2 overall pick. Best roster in football for my money. It's just the quarterback that holds him back, and you'll just have to see come playoff time.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the other complete roster, which we're going to stay in the NFC. I got to go the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right.
Now,
all right.
The Eagles have looked a little fraudulent over the last 2 weeks, but if I'm talking about a team that probably going to still end up with the number 1 seed in the playoffs, probably still going to get a bye, probably going to have home field advantage all the way throughout, loud fans, hard place to play. Jalen Hurts is making enough plays to win. Again, they look a little fraudulent. I'm a little dicey, but I'm trying to not get stuck on recency bias.
Yep.
I do not think this is a
recency bias here.
Yeah, I do not think this is a 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers situation. I think Jalen Hurts is a lot better than where Ben was at that point in his career. Philly has still beaten good teams. I mean, they beat Minnesota, and everyone keeps forgetting that. And they beat Dallas. They have signature wins. So I'm going to stick with Philly. It's a little dicey based on the last couple of weeks, but they have a complete roster. They brought in Ndamukong Suh. They brought in Linval Joseph. They brought in a little bit of that extra ammo to help their defense out to stop the run. So I'm going to stick with them with my number 2 pick.
I like it. Okay, my number 3 pick may shock you.
All right, let's hear it.
And it shocks myself because I hate this team to my core. I really do. They annoy me.
Wait, can I guess?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about, is it Dallas?
It's Dallas.
I was thinking about going Dallas.
Because here's the thing. Let me explain with this. What you saw, what they did to Minnesota, that's the team at its peak. When Dak plays like that, when Tony Pollard runs and passes and catches like that, when CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup can play off one another, that offense is insane. What I like most, though, about Dallas, and it will play no matter what any team they've played this year and beaten, it's shown up. That pass rush is absurd. There isn't a better one in football. And when you get into the playoffs, pass rushes can win you games. You see it all the time. If you're playing Dallas and you're playing that offense with the way it was firing against Minnesota, which was a laugher, and that front seven is getting to you 8 times in a game, good luck. You can't double team anyone along the line because if you do it to Lawrence, you got Parsons. It doesn't matter. This team is stacked. I like the roster. My only concern with Dallas is that, again, Dallas is a case of Dallasing. They like to mess things up sometimes. Dak can be inconsistent. But if Dallas plays like they did on Sunday with Dak throwing the ball, they're incredibly difficult to beat. So for me, again, because I think the AFC is tougher, I would say Dallas would be my third pick in this. And
No, I like that pick. I thought about going with it number 2, but I couldn't pass up on Philly just because they've been so good all year. But I really thought about Dallas. I mean, even Zeke, you didn't even mention Zeke. Zeke looked good last game.
Zeke looked good, but I think again, just on the
it's all about Pollard.
Cowboys should start Tony Pollard every game.
That
guy is just he's better than I because he does not complain about being paid far less despite being the superior back in the backfield for Dallas. He's crazy. What you saw out of the backfield, that catch where he beat Hicks on the wheel route. He's everything you want in a modern NFL back, and somehow he's their number 2. It's crazy.
The other thing that Dallas has going for it is they're probably going to get Odell. They're probably going to get a nice.
It does feel like that. It feels like they're going to add another weapon.
Especially with Detroit beating New York, because it felt like it was down to those 2 teams. And with New York losing, that kind of takes them out of the division race.
And with Green Bay losing.
Yeah. So it feels like Odell's going to get there. I like that pick a lot. I would not be surprised if they end up representing the NFC in the
That would be so gut-wrenching because I hate that franchise. I really do.
So with my third pick, I'm dropping into the bag a little bit, and I'm actually taking one out of your playbook. I actually thought about taking them with my second pick too, and I have to go with the team that represented the AFC last year. I think I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Damn you.
So I'm going to go with Cincinnati here. It's a team that, again, teams were calling them fraudulent as they went into the playoffs last year. They were anything but fraudulent. They came in, their defense shut down teams in the second half, which they've continued to do this year. They have Jamar Chase coming back. They have T. Higgins. They have Tyler Boyd. Joe Mixon will continue to be the running back he is. And we even saw Samaje Perine step up a little bit and play really well last game. So I like this team a lot as we continue to build in. And, of course, they got the ice in their veins in the quarterback who's manning them, which is Joe Burrow. So I'm going to take them with my third pick. I like them. I think they're going to end up winning the AFC North, which means I think they're going to be at home this time, which will help them if they don't even end up as the 2 seed, depending on how Buffalo in this AFC East matchup ends up. So it kind of depends on who they get in round 2, but I really like Cincinnati as a potential Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, they're going to be my next pick if they weren't. Because, again, this is another team. It's sort of similar to Dallas. It's just like when the Bengals offense has all of its players on the field and it's clicking, I don't think there's a better team out there in terms of offensive output that you can find. I mean, even without Jamar the last 3 weeks, they put up 30 in 3 of their 4 games. Adding him back into the fold is huge. And I think right now when I watch the Bengals, what's so clear to me is I think Joe Burrow looks great. I think you're getting better protection against the offensive line. They're running the ball better. And I think Joe is just seeing the field extremely well right now. He's continuing to play to his strengths of just diagnosing the play before it happens defensively. I love everything I've seen from him. I just think as Joe Burrow goes, the Bengals go, and he's playing great right now. I like that pick at your number 3 selection for it.
So who's your number 4 selection? You're next up on the clock.
This is tough, and I will probably, again, surprise some people when I say this.
Okay, let's hear it.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Folks, I think you've heard me say this probably one time or two before, but we are so close to Tom Brady finishing barely above 500, squeaking into the playoffs because the NFC South is so bad. And then drawing a first-round matchup against someone who's not particularly good, like let's say, who would be a wild card team in the NFC right now? I'm trying to go through. Like Seattle. They beat the Seahawks because it's Geno Smith, and I don't think he'll be able to handle playing in Tampa Bay as great as I think Geno is. He gets to round 2 and the lower seed, and they end up playing Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. And guess what? We all know what Kirk Cousins does in the playoffs. He lays eggs, and he comes back to his form because he can't play on noon on a Sunday in Week 14 when it doesn't matter. And Tom Brady takes care of him. And then guess what? All of a sudden, Tom Brady, who was one game over 500, finds himself in an NFC championship game against the San Francisco 49ers. And guess what? The defense of Tampa Bay is good enough to stop the run game of San Francisco. And who does it lean on but Jimmy Garoppolo? And Tom Brady is better than Jimmy G on every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And they somehow squeak into it. I know it sounds crazy, but this is what Tom does every single time to people. You stay there. You say he's got to be done. He's 40-some years old. He's getting divorced. Giselle's seeing her jiu-jitsu instructor, and he's got to be in shambles. And he's lost all this money from FTX Bitcoin. Not looking good. And somehow, some way, he's like Thanos. He's inevitable. He finds you when you least expect it. And I almost feel like that's what's going to happen this time around again. It crushes me, but I just feel like Tom Terrific is going to do it maybe to us once again before he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, great pick. I wouldn't have went there, but I like the gamble because it's Tom Brady. You always got to take a gamble on him. I get the reach a little bit, but I feel like you left the team wide open for me to kind of take who I thought taking with almost my second round pick, kind of waited on because I knew you'd take Cincinnati. I'm going to take Miami. I'm going to take the Dolphins here. The speed of the Miami Dolphins is going to be a huge advantage to them once we get to playoff times, especially with the teams in this AFC. These teams in the AFC lack secondary depth, and it's going to continue to be so as we go into the playoffs. And it might be a lot to stop Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Tua Tagovailoa is playing at an all-pro level right now, and we'll see if he continues to keep it up. Jeff Wilson, his addition has looked really nice in their offense. Their defense is playing well. Their secondary is making turnovers. I'm more of taking them as I think they can be a sneaky team. They'll be in the wild card round, and they might be able to draw a team like the Tennessee Titans, who they can pretty much easily take advantage of, and then go into the round 2 and hope that Kansas City, with their secondary lacking, with Buffalo, with their corners hurt, and with Cincinnati with a Awuzie out, I think they would be able to take advantage of those matchups. So I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins in the 4th round. Now, who are you going to take with your final round pick?
God, this is so tough. Like, this is where it becomes hard. Like, it's just, there's a lot of teams who I question because the AFC teams I want to take are kind of gone. And the NFC team,
there is one team with a really good record. Neither
I
of us
know,
have
and I
picked
think
yet.
I'm going to say them.
Okay.
And I think I am going to say them. And I think for my 5th pick, I don't think they'll really do it, but I could see it going if they can control the game and play their game. That's Tennessee. I think Tennessee. Oh, yes. I think Tennessee. I'm trying to think of who you were thinking of now.
Minnesota.
No. I'll take my chances with Tennessee right now over than I do with Minnesota. And that hurts me to say because I love Minnesota itself, but I'm not going to take Minnesota. I think I know what they are. I think this is a team that when the lights will shine brightest, although their playmakers on the outside will do their darndest, it comes down to Kirk Cousins. I know he's got the chains on. I know he's doing a little back and forth just to get the boys loose and bust them on the plane after the games. But what we saw last week is kind of what I think Kirk does when it really matters, when the lights are light, the lights are bright. So no, I'll say Tennessee. Look, I know Tannehill's just about as mid as it gets, but Tennessee's defense might be the best in football overall. This is a team that absolutely abuses offenses religiously. And the running game in a cold setting in Tennessee, if they're in Nashville, will travel anywhere it plays. A run game and an elite defense moves and travels. I know it didn't work last year, but if I had to bet, I would say I trust Tennessee more than I do Minnesota in a crucial game. And that's not saying a lot because both teams have terrible quarterbacks, I believe, when it comes to winning playoff games. But to Tennessee's credit and Tannehill's credit, they have been to an AFC championship. Kirk Cousins, I believe the furthest he's gone is a second round shellacking by the 49ers, I want to say in like 2019. So 2020. So I think for me, ultimately, it really is just going to be Tennessee as my 5th pick. And I know who you're going to take as your 5.
Well, so I'm kind of between two teams. I mean, one is my first call on the undrafted free agent market. Once we get out of this draft, is I'm going to be making this call. But I tend to agree with you about Minnesota. So with my 5th pick, I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, I like it.
I'm going to lean on Lamar Jackson. Again, they don't have quite the weaponry to get it done, but Lamar is something special. Lamar is a player that if you ask him, he can deliver for you. He's a really good player. John Harbaugh is a seasoned veteran. they might be in Baltimore. They might end up winning that AFC North. They might have some of the things on their back. They have a really easy schedule to finish out.
They do. They
So
really do.
They should be able to take care of business. And who knows? Maybe they end up striking magic and getting people to sign Odell.
I mean, agree. You would hope. You would hope it would maybe.
You would hope.
Ideas.
So they got Roquan Smith. While I didn't think that moved them,
they did a bit
that much. I mean, again, I feel like they're going to end up being there. I like them better. Now, let's talk about the biggest team we left off, which we have now both called frauds, which is the Minnesota Vikings. Biggest undrafted free agent. So you talked about it a little bit. I just want to give my perspective on why I didn't draft them. It's their secondary. I don't care. I don't care what you think of Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith is over the hill. He's still a good player, but he's not what he was. Their number one is Patrick Peterson, which is a problem. Their number two is Andrew Booth, who has not been that good. They're in trouble once they start playing really good offenses. Again, if you put them up against a Kansas City, they're going to burn the brakes off you. If you put them up against Miami, they're going to burn the brakes off that team. I mean, even if we talk, Dallas just destroyed them and just destroyed that secondary. Again, people are going to talk about Tony Pollard was really good. Most of his yardage came in the pass game, not in the run game. They're just going to get killed.
I mean, for Minnesota too, is like, I actually think their front seven is really pretty good. Like they rush the passer really well, but the problem is that they don't have anyone in coverage who really wins very often. I really like Patrick Peterson. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, but the reality is he's year 12 at this point. He's way over the hill. I like Harrison Smith still. He's not a guy who I would sit there and be like, he's top 10 at the safety position at this point anymore. It's way more question marks in the back end than anything else. And I think they could win a playoff game, but for me to be able to make a big run, I see too many concerns with them. And again, for me, so much like Kirk Cousins is a great regular season quarterback, but he just doesn't do it in the playoffs. Like he had the win against New Orleans, which to be honest was kind of aided by a weird PI call back in the day, but he's just not a guy really sit there and saying, hey, he's going to lead us to a Lombardi. And of course I can be wrong because guys like Trent Dilfer have raised one, but I just don't see it with Kurt at this point. I will say though, for Baltimore, let me ask you a question though on this, since they were your fifth and final pick.
Yeah.
Does it concern you that Lamar Jackson has yet to win a playoff game? No, he has. I take it back. He has won a playoff game. They beat Tennessee in Tennessee. My bad. He has.
Yeah, he's won one. I mean, it's not the most inspiring thing in the world, but Joe Flacco hadn't won a playoff game and then went on to win the Super Bowl. So not too worried about it.
Well, Flacco had won playoff games before that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm okay with it. I think Lamar is going to be playing for his contract. Again, it's my last pick. I'm just kind of taking a flyer. I don't think Baltimore is actually a serious contender. It's just out of those teams left, I think they probably have the best shot. But again, I feel like Kansas City's destined to steamroll the AFC as much as I don't want to admit it.
I don't know. I still have faith in Cincinnati and Buffalo being able to possibly stop that. If it was in Buffalo, then I think you'd have a really good case.
Yeah, I would agree, but it feels like it's going to be in Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like everything's going to have to go through Kansas City. And again, I mean, for Cincinnati, I will say for their case, I think the offense is more than good enough. And Lou Anarumo does seem to know how to make second half adjustments, and he's done it a lot against Patrick. It's just the way that he's playing right now, it makes it really difficult for me to see someone be able to continuously stop him. Because I think like last time, I think the Chargers did a pretty good job for most of the game. And even so, he still found a way to be a magician and find guys and win that game.
For sure. So what we're going to move on to is some start bench cuts that I have for you. So where we're going to start off is with what you would probably call mid quarterbacks.
Lovely.
And so what we're going to start off with is start bench cut, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, or Derek Carr.
Okay. This is tough because if we're doing it off performance this year in the regular season, I would start Geno.
Okay,
I think Geno has been the best. I would say I would start Geno if we're talking for this year. I would start Geno. I think Geno has shown me the most on tape. I think he's shown a lot of improvement. I think there's throws that I've seen him make this year that I go, wow, I didn't know he had that in his caliber whatsoever. So I would start him. I would bench Kirk Cousins. I would bench the Noon Nightmare. While I do think he folds in the playoffs, I have to give him his credit when it's in the regular season. The man knows how to put up a show with the best of them, constantly feeds Jay Jets, feeds Thielen, KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson, Dalvin Cook, a lot of weapons to play with. He maximizes that ability in the regular season. The postseason, of course, is a different story. I'll cut Derek Carr. Look, if Derek Carr didn't have Devontae Adams this season, he'd be on the streets. I don't think Derek Carr is much to write home about. I can't believe that he's gotten a contract. I can't believe he's still here. I know people are always like, oh, he's been so many different coaches. But I'm like, okay, no matter what you've seen with the Raiders struggles, I know they made the playoffs last year and once in 2014 with him. What's been the common denominator through all of it? Derek Carr. I know he has his moments, and I know everyone talks about all these comeback drives that he has, but why is he behind in all those games? Why does he have to do that? It's usually because he plays poorly in the first half of games. He hasn't really surprised me much this year. I've actually been really pretty underwhelmed with what he's given out this year, especially with his favorite weapon, Devontae Adams, back. Everyone swore he was going to do what they did at Fresno State together. And while they've had moments, it's truthfully underwhelmed me. So I would say I would cut Derek Carr, those three guys this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would tend to agree with you. All right, so next up, start, bench, cut. Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, or Christian McCaffrey?
Oh, this is really tough. You said, I guess you said mid quarterbacks to the first one.
Yeah, mid quarterbacks. This one is elite running back.
This is like really tough. Okay. So I'll tell you who I'm going to cut first. This might surprise you. I'm going to cut Nick Chubb.
Wow.
I will cut Nick Chubb because I think if I have an offense and I want to run a modern NFL offense, Nick Chubb does not allow me to do that as much. I need to bring in other guys to get involved in the pass game. I'm sure he's a good pass protector. I know he runs the ball probably better downhill than anyone else. But the reality is that when I look at the other two guys that you just presented in front of me, they not only offer elite running skills through the tackles outside and good blocking, but they also offer me so much more in the passing game. So I'll go ahead and cut Nick Chubb. That should not be taken as disrespect to Nick Chubb because I think he's one of the best 5 backs in the NFL, but I would have to cover him those 3 guys that you just named. The guy I'm going to start, the way he's been playing, the usage that he's been gotten, I would start, surprisingly, as long as he stays healthy, is Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey has been everything and more advertised since he's gotten to San Francisco. This is a dude who looks like he's back at Stanford the way he's playing right now. He's burning DBs in the slot corner position when he's out there as a wide receiver. Out of the receiving game in the backfield, there's no one better, I think, than him out there in terms of making guys miss and wiggling, getting small in space when he needs to. And he's also not a guy who's afraid to run between the tackles. They don't ask him to do it a ton, but when he does, he hits the hole and he's not scared about it. So I would say he's certainly a guy that I have to start. Also, mainly too, because of the scheme that he's being run in right now. Kyle Shanahan has found a way to get everything out of him. It's a match made in heaven. I love the situation that they have there. I'm going to bench Saquon. I think Saquon and CMC are so close. Saquon, I think, is probably the best, maybe the best athlete in the NFL. He does so much with the ball in his hand that's absolutely crazy. He's a real reason that Giants have been a success this season. A lot of it is facilitated through him. They've asked him to do everything, and he's picked it up and then some. So I would bench Saquon Barkley. Again, all these guys are great, but I would start CMC, bench, what else saying? Bench
Saquon
Barkley, and then cut Nick Chubb. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, that's fine. I would actually have a slightly different list than you.
I know you probably start Chubb.
No, I would start Saquon right now.
Really?
Yeah, I think Saquon is the best overall player out of the bunch right now.
I mean, it's a fair argument. I think he carries the biggest load for anyone.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the thing is, I want to go Nick Chubb just because of the running ability, but I kind of want more out of the pass game, especially in a modern NFL offense. And I feel like Saquon is the happy medium between the two.
I would tend to agree. Because, again, I think Saquon, you're right. He can run better through the tackles than CMC can. But then he also offers just as great of the ability to receive out of the backfield.
Yeah, so I think that's why I'd go with him one.
I get that.
And I think I would go Chubb bench just because of he's such an elite runner right now. Then I'd probably cut CMC, but I think you can really go.
You can rearrange any way you want. I don't think there's a wrong answer. I understand.
I don't think there's a right answer there.
So
start, bench, cut. Rookie receivers. So start, bench, cut. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, or George Pickens.
I'll start. This is unquestioned. Chris Olave. Olaf, as some people call him after the Frozen movie. Great film.
Yeah.
But I love Chris Olave. This is a guy that I said coming out of college was my favorite receiver in the draft. I think he's a guy who's absolutely explosive. I mean, you saw it this last week against the Rams. I mean, the guy can run every route in the tree. He's great with yak. He finds ways to high point the ball. Best of anyone that I've seen other rookie receivers. I know there's some other bigger physical guys, but he's the one who surprises me the most. He seems to continuously get off, open as much as possible. He does a great job of identifying zone coverage and sitting down in those soft spots. I really like everything Chris Olave brings. He's also a San Diego guy. How can you not like that? So Chris Olave would be the guy that I would start. I'm over to bench. I would have to say Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson would be such a bigger story this year if his quarterback wasn't Zach Wilson, who stinks. That's the issue right now. Garrett Wilson, when Flacco was out there, was absolutely humming. You were seeing why him and Olave were like the greatest duo you could ever imagine in college besides Chase and Jefferson, a wide receiver at Ohio State. Garrett Wilson has all the tools to be there. He just needs a better guy throwing the football, or else he's going to end up being like a Terry McLaurin, which he's better than Terry McLaurin, I think, projection-wise. And the guy that'll cut is George Pickens. I think Pickens has some really great moments. I think he's probably the brightest spot on that offense for the Steelers. My thing with Pickens is that I think he's going to get himself in trouble for stuff like you saw against Cincinnati in the final play of the game. What are we doing just spearing a dude when he's on the ground with your helmet? I mean, there's no need for that. It's the Pittsburgh way, I guess. This is what they kind of like to do. They like to take cheap shots. They've done it throughout their entire history. That's just the kind of way that it is. And I love George Pickens again. I think he's a great physical receiver. I think he runs routes well. But I just think of the three guys that are listed there, he's probably the one I would take last because I feel like I can find other guys that project like him. I just like what I get from Wilson and Olave in terms of their yak ability and their ability to stretch the field. I don't know how much Pickens can run after the catch as much too. So I would say benching Wilson, cutting Pickens, starting Olave.
Yeah. I think I would start Garrett Wilson just because of the ability. I feel like the ability's there, but we're just seeing it because of the bad quarterback play is just really dragging it down.
I mean, Olave is Andy Dalton. I mean, it's not like Olave has some sort of like.
That's true. That's true. All right. So next one, we just had a kick returner set the record.
Yes.
So we are going to talk about start, bench, cut returners.
Brutal.
So this is both punt and kick return.
Okay.
So your favorite topic. So start, bench, cut, Cordero Patterson, Devin Hester, or Joshua Cribbs.
Starting Devin Hester. How can I not start the greatest kick punt returner in NFL history? I know what Cordero, aka Scordero Patterson, did for the Falcons this past week, but Devin Hester is just a different guy when it comes to that. I mean, if you need a comparison, Devin Hester will get into the Hall of Fame for what he did in the return game. I don't imagine Cordero Patterson will. The return of the Super Bowl that he had in 2006 against Indianapolis was absolutely electric. I think he's probably, you could argue, one of the most electric playmakers in NFL history, and it's just for kick returns. So I would start him. I would actually bench Cordero Patterson. I think Cordero underrated how good he's been at this kick returning stuff. I can remember when he was taken out of Tennessee as a rookie and he was doing it for Minnesota on Sunday Night Football against Green Bay, taking 109 yards back to the house when they played in the Metrodome still. So I think reality-wise, Cordero's too. I think Cordell Patterson as a player is so underrated for what he does as a receiver and a running back for Atlanta. And ever since he's left Minnesota, I feel like he's been a playmaker that's just been underutilized, and he finally has a home now. But for the kick return game, I will take him as my bench and then cut Josh Cribbs. I really like Josh Cribbs. I got to watch him a ton when he was with Cleveland. This is a guy who I think, unfortunately, would have been better in the kick return game if he did not get like 6 concussions. I remember him taking some serious hits back in the day. I think he's a great returner, but I think the other two guys are just a little bit more electric, a little bit more, consistent in their return game ability. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that because I think Cribbs might be the highest average return by kick returns all time, but I'd still cut him of the 3.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And then our last one, start, bench, cut, bad quarterbacks.
No, no.
All right, so start, bench, cut.
We've gone from mid quarterbacks to bad quarterbacks now.
We're just at bad quarterbacks.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
So which of these start, which one, if you had to start, which one would you, if you had to bench, which one would you have to cut? So start, bench, cut, Zach Wilson, Baker Mayfield, or Davis Mills?
God, those guys all really stink.
Those are pretty much the really bottom bad. 3 guys.
Okay, I'm going to cut Baker.
Okay. Oh, wow.
I'm going to cut Baker. Look, Baker sucks. Baker, I don't know what there really is to say much left, but I mean, this guy was the number 1 overall pick, and he's absolutely laid one of the more remarkable eggs. I know he had that 1 year in Cleveland and swore to the Messiah that would lead the Browns back to everything. He wasn't. Everyone saw this coming. It's just Baker Mayfield. I mean, he's terrible with Carolina. And Carolina doesn't even have that terrible of skill position players out there. He looks so lost this last week against Baltimore. And again, I know it's a good Baltimore defense, but Baker is toast. This is a guy who legitimately lost his job to PJ Walker. Unbelievable. So cut Baker, keep the State Farm ads. Hopefully you're still raking in that money for you, bud. And then I would say for bench, I'll bench Davis Mills. You got sometimes Davis, you got to let Davis mill, just mill things out. But I mean, he's had some throws on tape. You're like, oh, that kind of flashes, but then there's also like 16 other plays where you're like, wow, that was horrific, Davis. I have no clue what you were thinking. Yeah. So I think I would bench Davis Mills, and I guess I'm going to start Zach Wilson. I guess Zach Wilson's winning games. There's been times like last season where I was like, wow, Zach Wilson's playing really consistent. He looks like he knows what he's doing. But right now, I mean, yeah, I'd start him, but I'll be honest, like these last 3 weeks have just been atrocious to watch. This is a dude who's like sidearming balls that are getting just like not even reaching the sidelines for incompletions or getting picked off. He's a disaster right now. He might lose his job next. I might regret saying that, but I would still start Zach Wilson over the other two guys you just mentioned.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree. I mean, all three of these teams need to move on from their quarterbacks.
No, absolutely. I remember we talked about Davis Mills. We're like, oh, wow, could he really be something? Oh, my gosh. Like, no, he's not good. He's terrible, actually. It's real.
No, he's really bad.
He's very bad. He seems like a very nice guy, but Daddy Longneck is not the guy.
I also think in comparison to the rest of that class, I mean, those quarterbacks have just not.
That's been a bad quarterback class, I feel like.
That it's just not really panned out at all.
I mean, I still like the only guy I really still like. I mean, what? Trevor Lawrence is the only guy I still really like. Have any sort of
Justin Fields.
Fields too, but I like what Justin Fields has done. They're going to kill the kid though. Still running him 15 times in the first half. I like what they've done in the offense of Chicago, and he's way more electric. But golly, it's letting that guy get hit like pinball. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
I mean, he's got the shoulder injury. He's day to day with that. He got an MRI on it. And I'm just
he has a dislocated shoulder.
Lovely, easy to play with. I heard.
Yeah, easy, especially at the quarterback position.
Simple. Don't need that arm. What is that even good for?
Yeah, for sure. So what I wanted to do, our last segment of the day, is on TikTok today. I posted a hot take. Now, it wasn't a part of the show. I just threw it up there because I was responding to what's a sports opinion that no one says, but you think is true. And so I've had a bunch of them and I've done circles, but I've never said this one, but I kind of alluded to it early on. When I said my hot take, I think the linebacker position is ceasing to exist. So I said that because I saw the league going a lot more athletic. Now, one thing I've noticed about this season, remember I did over the offseason, is while that is happening, and I still feel really good about that take, I think the league is going to start to transition back into a running league. Reason I say this is as these two high safety shells, when they play two high safety shells, when they play light boxes to bring on extra DBs to stop the pass, it's opening up the field to the run. I mean, look at the Chargers. The Chargers are the prime example of a team of they play this light box, they play this two high shell, and just get absolutely crushed on the run every single week. And teams are consistently beating them. Again, their roster should be a much better team than they are. But because they give up the run on such a high level and then bite on play action, they just give up everything on defense. It's not working for them. And as you look around the league, I just think we're starting to see kind of a running back renaissance. I mean, look at all the best players in the league right now. A lot of them are running backs. Saquon Barkley is willing his team to wins. Nick Chubb, they should probably have no wins if it weren't for him on their team. Derrick Henry continues to power them forward. I mean, as we look at these elite running back talents, they are willing these. I mean, even the Chargers. Let's talk about the Chargers. Austin Eckler is their entire offense. Joe Mixon won the Bengals a game single-handedly.
Yes.
I mean, as you look around the league, I'm just seeing all of these running backs gaining all of this ground on a position that was deemed meaningless. And they can pretty much find running backs anywhere nowadays. I mean, Pacheco went for 100 yards, a 6th round running back. We had White for Tampa go over 100 against Seattle.
Rashad White stand up. I drafted that guy so late in my dynasty league this year. Huge looking for me. Huge.
I mean, we're seeing running backs everywhere have success because they're running on these light boxes and these 2-eye safety shells, which are forcing teams to kind of bring their players up, which is allowing the pass to open up. And now to all those critics who on my video, the only response they have is, what about the teams that have Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or an elite quarterback? They're still going to pass the ball. Again, I'm not saying that the league is totally like, yeah, we're never throwing it again. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying is they're going to move more to the run than they were before.
No, I totally agree. Like the Bengals, the Bengals have run the ball so much better because they finally were like, you're just going to play too high on us the whole game. Okay, fine. We're going to run Joe Mixon for 5 yards until you say we can't let that happen anymore.
Exactly.
And then you take your shots over the top.
And again, all the people that are like, oh, well, if you look at the efficiency, you can get 5 yards a carry or you can get 7 yards a pass. Yeah, but to get 7 yards a pass, you need a quarterback who can do that. You think the Jets right now would rather have Zach Wilson or Breece Hall? If we're really talking about it from an offensive standpoint,
Breece.
I think they would rather have Breece Hall.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Okay. I mean, look at the Falcons. Do you think the Falcons would rather have Marcus Mariota or their three-headed backfield right now with Taylor Algier and Cordell Patterson?
You might be able to put me back there in Atlanta and have a good shot to win a game.
I mean, or Carolina. They're the only reason that they're even in these games is because of Foreman.
Chuba Hubbard. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think a lot of these mediocre teams are currently being carried by running. I mean, the Raiders. Josh Jacobs
is having an unreal year.
He's basically their entire offense. And you can say that's not transitioning to winning, but there's plenty of teams with good quarterbacks that aren't winning either.
I agree.
That's my point of, hey, I think I just see the league going this way, and we're going to see the play action just kind of take over because they can run on these light boxes really easily and get 5 yards a carry, kill clock. And especially when you play these elite teams with Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, you want to do that stuff. You want to keep them off the field with your running, with your backfield. And I think that's one reason Cincinnati might be able to make some noise in the playoffs is because they can just run on Joe Mixon on the 2-eye shells.
Yeah, for sure. Without a doubt.
Which is something the Bills and Chiefs can't do because their running back talent just isn't there.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's a great take. I don't think you're wrong in that whatsoever. I think if you just need to any example, just look the last couple of weeks. I think a lot of offenses finally started to transition from the fact like, oh, we really want to pass. Being like, fine, you know what? We'll gash you for 6 yards of play until you can figure out what to do, which is you can't do that every time.
For sure.
That's where you find your shot plays.
Yeah. So that's what I was sitting on. Do you have any takes you want to say before we go?
I'll give you a take I got. All right. So the MLB free agency is starting to heat up. A lot of hot stoves are starting to come up. And, everyone knows I'm a Major League Baseball guy. If for everyone who forgot, I was the guy who picked the Astros to win the World Series before the season started. And I was right. I'm sad I didn't bet on that because I'd probably be Jeff Bezos Jr. Well, actually, I would never want to be Jeff Bezos Jr. That'd be terrible. He's a scum guy. But
you're also the guy who said Yadi or Molina shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
You shouldn't be. Not first ballot. You should be in the Hall of Fame, just not first
ballot. That's not what the comments told me.
I know it's not what the comments said, but I'm telling you, first ballot, not on there. Yadi can't freaking hit a broadside of a barn with his baseball bat half the time. No, but my point is I'm trying to get it here as the winter meetings are starting. And one of the biggest names out there is Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, if you are a smart man, you will not go play. And don't get me wrong, Bay Area, I love you. There's so many parts about the Bay Area that I love. So many people who I love and care about are from the Bay Area. However, if Aaron Judge signs with the San Francisco Giants, he's killing his career. He's stamping right there that he will not get to 500 home runs. He is stamping the idea out that he will not get to the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, arguably. That is a stadium where everyone goes to die if you're a hitter. There's a reason Giancarlo Stanton decided to bounce out on things. There's a reason he vetoed that trade. It's because Oracle Park, as it's now called, AT&T formerly, kills power numbers. It would happen to Aaron Judge. If you want to hit more than 30 home runs in a year consistently, Aaron Judge, go play in Boston. Stay in New York. Hell, go play in Camden Yards, do anything else, but go to Oracle Park. Well, the wind from McCovey Cove, from anywhere in the field that you find, will knock the ball down so hard. I know you're from Fresno area. I know you went to Fresno State. I know you love the Bay Area. Heck, who doesn't? But here's the thing. If you go there, you're committing career and power suicide. Don't do it. Stay in one of the bigger markets. Don't torture yourself. The Bay Area is great. The people are great. San Francisco is an awesome city. But for your baseball power's sake, stay away from it. Don't do it. Save yourself. Aaron Judge, if you go there, you're committing power and career suicide for yourself. I don't want to see it happen.
So where do you think he goes then?
I actually think, and this will be great because it'll be so much fun when it happens, I think he's going to go to Boston.
Oh, wow.
I think he's going to leave New York. I think Brian Cashman has become so cheap at this point that he's going to leave New York and he's going to go to Boston. That's going to start a riot among Yankee fans.
Yeah.
I think he's going to win a World Series or something with them, and the Yankees fans are just going to revolt. But I think the Yankees fans, you have yourselves to blame for him leaving because he has said multiple times he was upset with how he was treated in the postseason. He has said multiple times that he's upset with the way Yankees fans have treated him over the years, despite being the biggest part of that team for the better part of 5 years now. This guy was the guy who broke the AL home run record, broke the franchise record home record, and you booed him in his own stadium when he was there. If he leaves, it's on you. It's on your ownership for being cheap. I think he goes to Boston. I think he rips the hearts out of so many New Yorkers. I actually think New York's the third place he will go. I think it's either Boston or San Francisco and then New York.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good gamble. I don't think he ends up in New York. I don't think he's going to be there.
I think he's soured on him. I think, again, this is a guy who he's played great on the brightest of lights, but I don't think he's a big New York City guy. I mean, Boston wouldn't be much different, but I could see him totally want to be like, I want to go home and be near my family. I don't want to be in New York. I don't want to be all the way across the country. Or he could go to the team that you cheered for as a kid, the Boston Red Sox. That could happen too.
I know, and then the Red Sox.
I mean, their fans are brutal
Boston
too, but Boston would love him. I mean, if he goes to Boston, I know right field's a joke in Yankee Stadium, but the number of balls he's going to purely pull over the left field wall.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pop fly for the dude. I know they say it's like 312 down the line, but multiple players like that's 295 down the line at best at Fenway.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy for him. I mean, I don't think he ends up in New York for sure. I think he's done with New York. I think the staple was in it is he broke the record. And they simulcasted him on every TV, gets to the postseason, doesn't start off well, and then the fans boo him after he had an MVP season who basically carried them to the postseason after the entire rest of the team had just basically given up and just written off the rest of the season. Aaron Judge continued to play well and was pretty much their entire offense.
That's like so spot on. Like that thing is so crazy about the fact that they booed me. I get it's New York and they're like, oh, it's hard here. It's the cement jungle. But damn it, you wouldn't be any good if it wasn't for him. So why are you booing him? Don't do that. And you pissed him off. He was clearly upset after that playoff series they lost. That you booed him. He gave you everything. You wouldn't have been anything without him. And you booed him off the field. That's what you leave him before he goes to free agency. It's moronic to have done.
It's dumb. I mean, it'd be like or it'd actually be like Dodger fans if they had just turned on Mookie Betts during the Padres series and started booing him in LA. I mean, it's moronic for the dude who who's like your best player. He won you a World Series. I mean, it's so ridiculous to go ahead and boo your MVP player.
If you're a fan base, this goes like a lot of people are like, oh, should we boo Fernando Tatis when he gets back? No. Don't piss off the guy that's your superstar that can carry you. Don't give him a reason to want to leave. I know he's been like Fernando. He's had his struggles. But guess what? If you make him mad, you're making probably the most talented player in baseball upset and not want to play for you. Don't do silly things like that. And I know New York, again, it's an argument like this is just what they are. They're passionate fans. No, you're just being a jerk.
I'm not going to lie. And maybe this is a strong take, but I really believe this as a fan. And remember, I'm a season ticket holder of the Chargers, so I go to a lot of live games. I don't really think you should ever boo your team.
I don't find booing. I can understand being upset, but booing,
I get booing the other team when they're coming onto the field. I mean, you do that all the time. You do that at every game. It's like you're walking on the field, but you should really never boo, to be quite honest.
Yeah, if you I remember those games Padres fans were booing. It's okay. Booing to me is insinuating oh, you're not trying. Yeah. You don't think those guys are trying? I have seen 95, 96, 97. Do you know how goddamn hard it is to hit? Now take that and throw in a guy that throws a wipeout slider, an absolutely disgusting change. It's not a simple sport. What they're doing isn't easy because if it was, you'd be doing it. So that's always what I think about. Not only that, but like imagine if you were at your profession and someone came and booed you. Would you really want that when you sat at your cubicle or at your teacher's desk or at your office and someone just randomly came in and booed at you? Just don't do it. It doesn't serve any purpose. They're trying. It's not like they're intentionally trying to be bad.
The one thing I will say, and this is the one side of the argument, I kind of feel like, and I think if I were a Denver Broncos fan, I think I would do it too. I kind of get booing the Denver offense. I mean, it's tough. I don't think they should be doing it.
Not trying to be that bad, but it's like the continuous struggle.
And to trade all that stuff for Russ and Russ to be so bad and Nathaniel Hackett to continue to make bad decisions, I kind of get it. I kind of get where you're coming from.
I know it's tough to take down for Denver. Like again, I can kind of get it because they've watched it now week after week after week with no improvement.
Well, especially when all they were told all offseason is all we were was a quarterback away, and we went and got him. And then he comes onto the field, and you could maybe argue they're in a worse position this year than they were with Drew Lock last year.
Probably.
Or Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, they currently have more. They have almost as many losses as they did last year at this point this year.
No, because they lost last time around.
They lost 9 games.
Denver was still in it theoretically up until Christmas time.
They were 9-8, or they ended up 8-9.
No, they're atrocious. The defense is playing out of their mind, but the offense, like, I just don't get the offense. I know they don't have Javonte Williams anymore, but they still have guys like I know Jerry Judy's hurt, but they still have Judy, they still have Sutton, they still have Hamler. It's like you have enough playmakers to make things happen, and it's so bad.
So I have a question for you, and this will be our last talking point since we're talking about Denver. Does this make you think Vic Fangio was the scapegoat for Denver?
Oh, I mean,
do you think it? Well, how about this? Should he get another job? I
think Vic should. I mean, look, I think Vic Fangio should get a job purely based off the fact of his scheme that he created is what you see every single day in the NFL when you turn it on. The cover 2 high shell is something he invented to continuously shut down top tier quality quarterbacks. And he did it all the time. I mean, this is a guy who's a defensive genius. He should absolutely get a second shot on that merit alone. I think he's a little bit of a scapegoat. I mean, I think the real issue is here with Denver is it turns out Nathaniel Hackett has no clue what he's doing.
No.
I mean, no clue. It really shows you maybe how much worth. I mean, they're not doing great in Green Bay at all right now, but how much he got carried by Aaron Rodgers in that offense that they had there at the time. Because Hackett has no clue what's going on. He can't scheme. He can't draw up big plays. It seems like anytime Denver does have something, it's because like 2 DBs ran into each other. I don't know. It says more to me about how bad Hackett is than it does to like Fangio being a scapegoat.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been our show. This has been From the Backseat. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube if that's where you're watching. If you're listening on any podcast platform, they're available on all. So if you want to go subscribe to us and leave 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen, thanks for listening. Make sure to follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure to continue to catch up with us and make sure to come join our chalkboard. This has been From the Backseat. I hope you enjoyed it.
Have a good night, y'all.